With the news that Queen Camilla never thought she would hear during King Charles's reign, William and Catherine have just stunned the entire world. She retains the title and the crown, but the power and future she had anticipated are being transferred to someone else. William is assuming command, Catherine is moving forward, and Camilla is confronted with one harsh question within the royal walls. Did she consent to this change, or was her future predetermined before she came in? 3 somber words opened the statement. We regretfully declare. William held a document from the palace as he stood in front of the microphones. Behind him, Catherine remained composed, serious, and unavoidable. William then affirmed that Camilla would progressively relinquish the duties that had placed her at the forefront of royal life. State events, travel abroad, large gatherings, charitable activities, palace preparation. The meaning was clear, even if each obligation was explained as a part of a polite transition. Catherine would stand where the Queen had anticipated, but Camilla would show up next to Charles. For fans who have been waiting to see William and Catherine positioned at the center of the monarchy, subscribing is important, since this was not just a lighter diary, but the start of a new royal order. When Catherine comes forward, do not applaud. Take pleasure in seeing the future develop, then depart without contributing to the channel exposing palace shifts. Please subscribe, like, and share, because being silent simply serves to maintain the status quo. Cars passed through a private entrance into Windsor hours before the announcement. First to arrive were senior advisors. Without addressing the press, Princess Anne trailed behind. Catherine arrived with a thin folder. Camilla thought the discussion was about Charles's shortened schedule and the stress the family's working members were under. When she sat down, the room was too quiet. William discussed stability, continuity, and readying the throne for the following generation. Charles was silent while he listened. Catherine took a look at her notes. Anne kept an eye on the table. Every sentence brought Camilla's future closer, yet no one brought it up. William then put a dark folder right in front of Camilla. She froze when she saw the heading. Temporary support was not described. A brief interval of rest was not mentioned. The wording suggested a shift in accountability. Camilla read it twice. She turned to face Charles, but there was no comfort in his expression. Hello, viewers. Are you pleased that Catherine is taking the lead? If William and Catherine are the royals you genuinely want to see in charge of the future, please let us know in the comments below, and show it by liking, sharing, and subscribing to this video. When Catherine consented to take on the state visits, philanthropic engagements, and receptions inside, she inquired. She wanted to know if Anne had looked it over. The room fell silent as she turned to face Charles and inquired if he had given his approval. Nobody responded right away. There was more weight in that pause than in any planned remark. The shift, according to Charles, is a form of protection. The timetable had become taxing. The monarchy required assurance. Catherine had emerged as the family's most powerful public figure, and William had to get ready for the coming years. The explanation increased the tension, but Camilla listened without interjecting. Consent is typically the first step toward protection. Meetings she had never attended had started this. Catherine did not lose her cool. She didn't rejoice. She didn't confront Camilla. She didn't have to. The dates had been examined. There had been a reassignment of duties. William then disclosed the information that altered everything. The public statement was finished. The media had been informed. They were setting up the mics. The first few words had been selected. Camilla was not given the opportunity to determine whether or not the transfer would take place. There was just one option left to her. Either stand beside to the announcement or show the world that it was made without her. The reality became unavoidable as she gazed at the document. William and Catherine had given up on the future. While they were constructing it, Camilla had realized that she was losing control over what would happen next. The public statement was made using the language used by palaces to make a decision seem less harsh than it actually is. There was no description of a removal. There was no such thing as a demotion. Instead, William talked about continuity balance and the necessity of shielding Queen Camilla from an ever more demanding schedule. Beside him, Catherine stood calmly and solemnly, as if every word had already been considered. Camilla would continue to be queen on paper. She would attend family events, maintain certain patronages, and show up next to Charles when necessary. However, the specifics revealed a different picture. Catherine would be given several state receptions. Significant charitable appearances would be rearranged. William and Catherine would be at the forefront of future foreign trips. The Wales household would increasingly be involved in long-term palace planning. The actual announcement was that no title was being taken away from Camilla. The responsibilities that gave the title its everyday authority were being taken away from her. The phrase was crisp enough for royal correspondents to notice right away, yet it was also cautious enough to avoid open disagreement. A single phrase kept coming up: future plans, not a stopgap measure, not assistance during a challenging season. Future plans. The phrase suggested to a long-lasting structure and went beyond Charles's present responsibilities. Then there was the unavoidable absence. They weren't standing with Camilla. The four senior royals were not shown together in a cozy portrait. Charles did not make any remarks complimenting his wife's service. No fleeting glimpse of a cohesive family. William said something. Catherine stayed by his side. Camilla simply existed within the announcement that was being made about her. Before William was even done, reporters started looking at their phones. Was there another note from Buckingham Palace? Had Camilla asked for the modification? Was Charles consulted on every aspect? None of the palace aides responded to the question in the middle of the room, despite their well-prepared lines. Was this Camilla's choice? Silence was the answer. The official statement did not spread as quickly as that quiet. In a matter of minutes, pundits were examining William's tone, Catherine's look, and the void where Camilla may have stood. It was referred to as a compassionate adjustment by some. Others witnessed the first overt indication that the next generation of monarchs had given up waiting for approval. Camilla was going over the same announcement line by line inside Windsor. Not a single canceled appearance was what worried her the most. The pattern was what it was. A state visit, a charity event, and a reception were all discreetly moved. On its own, each modification appeared insignificant. Together, they crafted a future where Camilla only showed up when custom demanded it, and Catherine emerged as the most prominent woman in the crown. Camilla had long thought that her place next to Charles would be safe for the duration of his rule. To get there, she had to put up with decades of scrutiny, constant comparison, and public outrage. The uncertainty was supposed to cease when she became queen. Rather, the announcement created a new type of uncertainty that was concealed by the words of concern. The crown belonged to Charles. The title belonged to Camilla. However, the direction belonged to William and Catherine. Before the public discussion had concluded, the first revised engagement calendar was released. When Camilla opened it, she anticipated a smaller diary, a few tasks shared with Catherine, and possibly a few postponed appearances. She discovered something more intentional. Next to the receptions Camilla had anticipated hosting was Catherine's name. For certain international occasions, William and Catherine were mentioned as the principal royal attendants. Numerous humanitarian events had been rescheduled with no indication that they would resume at a later time. Camilla's own entries were shorter, fewer, and more frequently referred to as optional. A single detail was more profound than the others. In subsequent state visits, her role was characterized as ceremonial rather than central. Everything was altered by that one word. Influence was central. Ceremonial meant uncontrollably present. Camilla sought for confirmation before closing the calendar. The public explanation was reiterated by palace servants. The changeover was courteous. Modifications would lessen the strain. In a responsible manner, The monarchy was getting ready for the next years. However, no one stated that the responsibilities were only temporary or that they would ever be given back. Camilla then turned to the last page. For senior review, a private message had been attached. The first list included the duties Catherine would take on, and the second list was designated for transfer at a later time. Camilla looked at the heading. It didn't have her name. Camilla's involvement in upcoming palace choices was mentioned in the last line. 2 quiet words, consultation only, had been put next to it. The new focal point of the schedule was Catherine. Camilla had not just been diminished, they had taken her out of the room completely. Camilla remained silent. The room was very uneasy because of that. She folded her hands, put the calendar next to the folder, and started asking questions. The transfers had been approved by whom? When was Catherine consulted? Which advisors had given their approval to the new hierarchy? And why had Camilla only seen the completed plan after the public language was ready? Nobody hurried to respond. Charles glanced at the table. William did not move. Catherine's face remained unchanged, with the silent focus of someone assessing not just the words, but also the pressure behind them. Anne observed Camilla. Camilla turned to William first. Dates were what she desired, not guarantees or well-crafted justifications. William clarified that the review had started weeks earlier, after a number of high-ranking officials cautioned that the monarchy's future agenda could not rely on Charles continuing at the same rate indefinitely. The engagements had been charted. Commitments abroad have been contrasted. Each royal's charitable responsibilities have been ranked according to its significance, prominence, and practical lifespan. It had an administrative tone. It was not at all like that. When did Catherine's name appear next to her responsibilities? Camilla wondered. According to William, the second draft was practical, whereas the first was exploratory. By the third, advisors weren't debating whether Catherine would assume greater authority. Instead, they were figuring out how soon it might happen without causing open confrontation. That response was a tremendous hit. Camilla has been under constant investigation for years. Every look was contrasted with Diana's. Every grin was scrutinized. Every attempt to maintain stability was viewed as a calculation. She had stood by Charles through criticism, uncertainty, and delays for decades, reconstructing a public image that had once appeared irreparable. Security was meant to be brought by the monarchy. Rather, it had brought about a countdown. At last, Charles said something. He talked about stress, public expectations, and the need to avoid making snap decisions in the event of another catastrophe. But he clarified that the modifications were not meant to degrade her. He reassured her that no one was questioning her position next to him, and that she would continue to enjoy certain patronages. Camilla paid attention till he was done. Then she questioned why it was necessary to remove her from decision-making before consulting her in order to safeguard her. The space became more constricted. William was accountable for the future, according to Charles. In response, Camilla said that William was getting ready for his reign, while acting as if Charles's had already started to end. Although the comments were soothing, they addressed the dread that Charles had refrained from naming. To become king, he had to wait a lifetime. Every pragmatic argument now appeared to go beyond him. Camilla carried a form of that hurt herself so she could relate to it. For years, she had thought that the uncertainty would end when Charles ascended to the throne. At last, they would stand together in the center. However, the palace had seen that the balance had shifted more quickly than any of them had anticipated due to William's growing power and Catherine's popularity. The patterns of staffing had changed. The Wales team was receiving copies of briefings that were previously given to Charles's household first. William and Catherine's attendance was a question that foreign organizers asked more and more. Catherine's name was requested by charities. By themselves, none of these modifications seemed very significant. They came to a decision together. Somewhere else, the future was coming together. Camilla pivoted to face Catherine. She inquired as to whether Catherine had asked for the charity engagement state visits and receptions mentioned in the new schedule. In response, Catherine said she had made no requests. When asked if she could handle the work, she had honestly said that she could. The atmosphere was altered by that one word. Catherine did not offer an apology. She wasn't engaging in open competition. All she was doing was refusing to act unprepared. Camilla then inquired as to if Catherine thought palace authority should be decided by popularity. In response, Catherine said that, while popularity would decline, public trust must not be disregarded when the monarchy relied on support from the populace. Charles moved around in his seat. William remained silent. The conflict was no longer concealed. Camilla went back in time. Who had looked over the third draft, she wanted to know William was one advisor. Catherine is another name. Before bringing up Princess Anne, a third person paused. Camilla turned to face the other person at this table. Anne did not avert her gaze. Camilla realized at that point that the plot extended beyond the Wales household. It wasn't only William and Catherine. The idea had already been reviewed by someone Charles trusted and whose work ethic the family seldom questioned. Camilla's tone softened. She had one last question for Anne. "Did you know this was what they were going to do?" Anne hesitated before responding. Camilla realized during that wait that the next move may determine whether this was a palace consensus or a familial dispute. Anne didn't respond right away. As if determining how much truth the room could hold at once, she looked from Camilla to Charles and back again. Finally, she responded, "Yes, I knew." Windsor's equilibrium was altered by the quiet words. Anne did not support the strategy as a win for William. She did not characterize it as Camilla's punishment. It was much harder to ignore her reasoning, which was colder than that. She claimed that the monarchy was unable to organize itself around sentiment. For the next 20 or 30 years, it had to assign long-term responsibility to those who could handle it. William was implied by that. Catherine was intended by that. Camilla's years of devotion alongside Charles had won her respect, Anne admitted. She acknowledged that the manner the changeover had been managed would feel intimate. However, she cautioned that waiting would simply make the final change more severe. The family might wait until public pressure compelled them to make the decision, or they could prepare while there was still time. Camilla gazed at her. Anne had not made a decision. The institution was her choice. Because of this, the decision felt less like family pressure and more like a verdict that was already being formed. Support is crucial for those who have been waiting to see William and Catherine finally have faith in the crown's future. When Catherine shows up at a state reception, it is simple to celebrate. When William talks about duty, it is simple to give him admiration. However, viewers should show their commitment to leading the future generation by loving, sharing, and subscribing to this news. If not, those calling for change will always be drowned out by the strongest voices defending the status quo. William had seemed to be the mastermind behind the reorganization up to that point. Something else was disclosed by Anne's admission. The key to making it work was Catherine. She had examined whether ceremonial responsibilities could be taken on without making her personal life a public spectacle. She had looked at abroad obligations, charity schedules, and the extensive planning needed for state visits. She had urged that Camilla maintain the closest connection between her personal work and the patronages. Additionally, she had refused to use wording that would portray the move as degrading. Catherine desired a definite transition, but not harsh. That distinction was important. Camilla questioned if Catherine had been shielding the palace from criticism or if she had been defending her honor. In response, Catherine said that while both issues were important, neither could solve the real-world issue. The crown required consistency. The public required trust. Charles required assistance, and the following generation could not continue to prepare indefinitely. Camilla's expression stiffened. She inquired as to whether Catherine thought she already had the power to mold the monarchy. Before responding, Catherine did not turn to face William. She claimed that no one lady owned the kingdom, not to Camilla. not to her. It was part of the obligation that every generation was supposed to fulfill, regardless of how easily that obligation materialized. The space became motionless. Then Camilla posed the issue that lay beneath all others. Would Catherine stand next to Charles on important state occasions? Catherine gave a cautious response. Wherever the crown asked her to stand, she would do so. Nothing less, nothing more. The announcement was starting to divide opinions outside of Windsor. After years of attention, some thought Camilla should have a more private life. For some, Catherine's ascent was long overdue. A third group witnessed a more significant development, a reign that started in practice before it started in name. The case was strengthened by the photos. At the microphones is William. Behind him is Catherine. Between them, the official paperwork is visible. Then another grainy, far-off image from the secret meeting appeared, showing William and Catherine close to Camilla, while a dark folder was exchanged. Camilla's expression told its own narrative, even though no one could hear the talk. In a matter of minutes, the picture became viral. Every detail was examined by commentators. William's stance, Catherine's expression was unchanging, Camilla's hold on the paper. The argument even included Charles's absence from the frame. Nevertheless, no unity photo was made public by the palace. No group was grinning. No comforting hug. Just one image and a few well-chosen phrases that no one could explain. A senior advisor then brought a final paper back into the meeting room. This one was more somber and thinner. It had nothing to do with the charities Catherine would take on initially, or the diary for the following month. It covered every significant event that would come up if Charles was unable to keep up a full public schedule, including state banquets, coronation anniversaries, and Commonwealth meetings. Camilla made a grab for it. It was not released by the advisor. He clarified that the document had not yet been approved. William had looked it over. Catherine was ready for it. Anne was in favor of its goal. However, one signature remained absent. Charles's, and nobody in that room understood until the king signed whether Camilla's diminished status would continue to be a cautious adjustment or turn into the long-term framework of the monarchy. The others were instructed to depart, leaving Charles by himself with the unsigned document. He didn't touch it for a few minutes. The pressure had not decreased, but the room had. The key to William's case was preparation. Catherine relied on her ability. The foundation of Camilla's was history loyalty, and the assurance that Charles's rule would not be used as a springboard for another. Each argument had weight. Every decision has a price. Between them all was the document. Charles knew the implications of his signing. Camilla's title would remain intact. Neither her marriage nor the work she had accomplished would be diminished. However, it would establish a framework that would eliminate the need for her to be at the center. When the royal program needed assurance after it was signed, future planners would first turn to William and Catherine. Charles was unable to overlook that aspect. To become king, he had waited his entire life. He had envisioned the rituals, the accountability, and the opportunity to mold the organization. However, at this early stage of his reign, he was being asked to consent to a future where his son and daughter-in-law would have the authority, momentum, and attention of those connected to the crown. It seemed realistic. It felt intimate as well. William did not ask for a prompt response when he got back. He discussed the peril of waiting. Months beforehand, state visits were scheduled. Stable donors were necessary for charities. Officials from the Commonwealth needed clarification. If Charles cut his schedule once more, foreign nations wanted to know who would represent the monarchy. William claimed that the crown could not get ready just after a crisis. Charles paid attention. Then William presented the argument Camilla was most afraid of. In the public's mind, Catherine was already working. People reacted to her. Her attendance was desired by the organizers. In a matter of minutes, her appearances spread over the globe. The palace has two options: Accept that fact or act as though the future had never happened. Charles questioned if the composition of the royal family should be determined by popularity. William declined. However, public trust could not be disregarded. That response remained in the room. Before Charles could reply, Camilla came in. She was familiar with the most recent draft. Her worry was no longer concealed. She maintained that she wouldn't be the only one impacted by having her role reduced. It would give the impression that Charles was only in power to set the stage for William. She emphasized to them the need of hierarchy. Social media approval, acclaim, or headlines could not rule the monarchy. Titles would be meaningless if every well-liked royal relocated closer to the center. William's face hardened for the first time. This was not about applause, he said. It had to do with stamina. The organization needed individuals who could take on the most demanding duties for decades, but Charles and Camilla could continue to serve. The king would not be protected if no plans were made. The crown would be exposed as a result. Without hesitation, Camilla responded. She claimed that by making the present appear weak, his strategy safeguarded the future. The words fell precisely where she wanted them to. With the exception of Anne, Charles stood up and ordered everyone to go. At the threshold, Camilla hesitated. As she waited for Charles to return her call, she turned to face him. He didn't, and stood there until the door shut. Then she revealed to her brother something that neither Camilla nor William had been able to articulate well. He had to make the choice. Not William's, not Catherine's, not Camilla's. Resentment would ensue if Charles signed due to pressure from his son. Uncertainty would increase if he declined, because his wife was afraid of losing power. He had to choose what safeguarded the monarchy and then deal with the fallout on a personal level. Charles inquired as to whether Anne thought Camilla had turned into a hindrance. Anne was deliberate in her word choice. Camilla, she claimed, was not the barrier. It was the fear of letting her down. That distinction was important. Anne counseled him to keep Camilla by his side on important occasions, maintain the patronages closest to her, and protect her dignity. However, the work that looked to the future had to relocate. Not because Camilla had failed, but rather because the palace could not continue to resist the one-way flow of time. Charles went back to the table. He went over the last page once more. He then made changes to the document. Camilla's removal from primary duties was not specified in the revised text. It made the regulation more expansive. The Prince and Princess of Wales would take major responsibility for the Crown's public program whenever the sovereign's workload needed assistance. It sounded impartial. It had no effect. The conflict's outcome persisted even after Camilla's name vanished. Every time Charles took a step back, William and Catherine would automatically take center stage. Charles put his signature. Before dusk, the palace prepared a statement. The choice could no longer be changed, but Camilla was allowed to review it. One line was waiting for her at the bottom of the last page. The Crown's next public program will be primarily overseen by the Prince and Princess of Wales. Silently, Camilla read it. She then inquired as to when the palace planned to inform the public. Shortly after dusk, the palace issued the second statement, which had less ambiguity in its wording. Camilla would maintain her status, continue to support Charles, and occasionally go with him. However, whenever the king cut back on his schedule, William and Catherine would now head the Crown's upcoming public program. It appeared to be a calculated announcement. Its effects were felt right away. State planners started rerouting briefings to the Wales household within hours. Contact lists were sent to charity offices. Teams from abroad were instructed to schedule next trips around William and Catherine's availability. The mechanism of royal life had already shifted, but nothing spectacular occurred in public. The page still had Camilla's name on it. Her impact didn't. The first sign showed up at a reception that was planned for the next week. Camilla had anticipated hosting it next to Charles. Rather, Catherine came in. First welcomed everyone and led the evening with William following a short distance behind. She spoke to top officials, ambassadors, and leaders of charities, as if she had always been in charge, moving through the room with composed precision. The pictures spread swiftly. Catherine is in the middle. William is observing with approval. Charles showed up later. Camilla is not present. The Queen had decided to rest according to palace advisors, but this didn't stop the outcry. William and Catherine's supporters described the event as the most obvious indication that a new era in the monarchy had begun. Some questioned why Camilla hadn't shown up to an event that had previously been connected to her role. No one asked that question out loud inside the palace. In private, Camilla watched the coverage. She noticed that Catherine's confidence was being praised in the headlines. She noticed visitors bending in her direction. She observed how quickly the public embraced the new system. Confusion and obvious resistance were absent. The changeover had gone precisely as William had anticipated. It hurt because of that. After the reception, Charles joined her and made an effort to keep their private lives and the institution apart. Titles, schedules, and public attention could not define their mutual significance, he informed her. After listening, Camilla gave him the response he had been afraid of. She had worked for decades to get to the center of royal life, only to be informed that it was no longer important. She was still Queen, Charles reminded her. In response, Camilla said that a title could endure long after power had shifted. Neither talked for a moment. There was no hostility in the silence between them. It was acknowledgement. Another change emerged by the following morning. William's office had initially received a briefing on Commonwealth meetings. Camilla's advisors were copied after Catherine's. Although the order was small enough to be written off as administrative, everyone inside the palace knew what it meant. The new hierarchy had lost its symbolic meaning. It was working. Anne did not celebrate the change. She knew Camilla would never see it as kindness, but she still thought the family had made the least harmful decision. Even with respect, a reduction was still a reduction. Even so, a ceremonial position was not as big as the position Camilla thought she had won. William, however, declined to see the shift as a triumph. He solely discussed the need of stability, preparation, and service. Catherine did the same. Neither needed to condemn Camilla, therefore neither did. Each triumphant presentation presented the case for them, and that was the last insight. Camilla's workload has never been the primary reason for the announcement. It indicated who the palace anticipated the populace would follow next. William was no longer on the periphery of his father's power. Catherine was not waiting to take over. While Charles remained on the throne, they had united to form the active hub of the kingdom. Camilla was still by his side, but she wasn't longer in the lead. Did she accept the arrangement? She didn't oppose in public. In private, the solution was far more complicated. When the alternative is public shame, acceptance may appear to be consent. She might have grinned when asked, signed nothing, and voiced no objections. This did not imply that the choice was made voluntarily. This is the time to expose it to fans who think William and Catherine will be the royal family's future. Please subscribe, like, and share, because the palace can only conceal the most crucial information if you witness them come forth and reject the accounts that explain how it transpired. Charles is still the monarch. Camilla is still the queen. However, William and Catherine are now the focus, the direction, and the long-term accountability. A coronation was not the start of the future. 3 words were used to start it. We regretfully declare. The private lesson Camilla allegedly gave her closest assistant after witnessing Catherine replace her at that reception will also be shown in the upcoming film. A sealed letter, a postponed appearance, and one name Camilla omitted from the palace's subsequent release were all part of the directive. If you overlook that detail, you'll miss the first indication that she might not be prepared to gently stand aside.